Meanwhile, the FBI is now facing new questions, as I mentioned, about its previous investigations into Omar Mateen. The agency checked him twice, but never, in fact, found legitimate ties to terror, and sources now tell CBS News that the FBI never told Mateen's employer about the investigations themselves. Jeff Pegues has more.
Officials confirm that Omar Mateen worked as an armed security guard at the St. Lucie, Maine courthouse prior to 2014. CBS News has learned that there is no evidence to suggest that the FBI contacted his employer, G4S, when investigators began looking into complaints from co-workers in 2013. According to the FBI, he was boasting of family connections to al-Qaeda and that he was a member of Hezbollah. FBI Director James Comey says he also expressed a desire to die.
He said he hoped that law enforcement would raid his apartment and assault his wife and child so that he could martyr himself.
The FBI investigated with wiretaps and informants. They also interviewed Mateen twice, but he was cleared. In 2014, his name resurfaced in an investigation into an American suicide bomber in Syria. That man and Mateen went to the same Florida mosque. Again, Mateen was cleared. But the investigation into the mass shooting reveals he had indeed become inspired over the years by extremist ideology.
We are highly confident that this killer was radicalized, and at least in some part through the internet.
Now that the FBI has his cell phones and computer, they can track who he was talking to and what he was reading. Law enforcement sources say there is evidence he may have researched Disney World as a possible target. Ultimately, he chose the Pulse nightclub. Just over a week before the attack, he had purchased the Sig Sauer MCX assault rifle on June 4th, then a Glock 17 on June 5th. Gun store owner Ed Henson says Mateen had multiple security licenses.
If he hadn't purchased them from us, I'm sure he would have gotten them from another local gun store in the area.
And Jeff Pegues is tracking the FBI investigation from Washington. And Jeff, is there any evidence right now to suggest that this shooter conspired with anyone who might still be lending support, and perhaps planning further attacks?
Well, the U.S. Attorney has said that they are looking at other people who may have been involved at some level. Maybe not directly, but at some level, perhaps someone who had knowledge of anything related to the planning of this event, because we know now that Mateen was taking steps toward this event. So there is planning involved here, and was anybody else involved in that? And so they are looking into that. Whether there will be charges brought against anyone, that is still unclear, that is still unknown, and that is what the U.S. Attorney there has said. But they are looking for more evidence. As you know, there's been a search of his property. There have been searches for physical as well as electronic evidence. They've seized a computer. We know that they've seized a cell phone as well. And there are no encryption roadblocks. That's what we're hearing from investigators, that they are not facing the type of encryption roadblocks that they say they were facing when it came to investigating the San Bernardino terrorist attack. In this case, Mateen, according to investigators, was using a Samsung phone, and they're saying that there are no encryption roadblocks preventing them from getting evidence in this case.
Jeff, meanwhile, much now is being made of the prior investigations by the FBI into Omar Mateen. One portion of it concerns the FBI's that the FBI did not, in fact, inform his worldwide security firm for whom he worked of its investigations, that in fact it was Mateen that told his company about it himself. What to make of that?
Well, historically, when you look at investigations like this, where you have a mass shooting like this, and obviously this is an unprecedented event, but there have been other incidents where a suspect was on the FBI's radar or law enforcement's radar, but there is this sense that there wasn't the connecting of the dots. And so that is what is happening in this case. There will be a review of the FBI's contacts with Mateen in 2013 and 2014. And the question is, were the dots connected? We know CBS News has learned that his employer, he was working for a company that has security guards, It's G4S. There is no evidence that the FBI informed G4S that he was the subject of these FBI inquiries. So the question is, were the dots connected leading up to this mass shooting by investigators? He was on their radar, but were the dots connected? And I have talked to law enforcement officials who say, you know, in many of these cases, our hands are tied in that there are First Amendment concerns, and so there are very few opportunities to stop these type of lone wolf incidents.
Jeff, as they then continue to look into the possibility of self-radicalization on the part of Omar Mateen, came reports yesterday from the Orlando Sentinel and the Los Angeles Times that Mateen had perhaps had a profile on certain gay dating apps, suggesting the possibility perhaps that this may have been self-radicalization of a different sort with regard to a possible hate crime here. If nothing else, it would seem that that could complicate the investigation. What are the next steps then?
Well, that is another factor in the investigation, digging deeper into that. We know that he had an active footprint online via social media and the internet, so they're going to be digging into that. The question is getting at the heart of the motivation behind this mass shooting, and investigators are trying to do that. They haven't found any direct contact right now with anyone overseas who may have had a role in planning this event, but they're still looking for that. At the very least, they know that he was inspired by something that he was reading, this radical ideology, whether it was Hezbollah, whether it was ISIS. Anwar al-Awlaki, the American-born cleric who was killed in a drone strike in 2011. So there were different radical elements that he was buying into, and investigators are trying to narrow down exactly what it was that motivated him to act.
Jeff Pegues in Washington, we thank you for your time.